And I just remember, I was talking to Andrea, and I just remember telling her that when I was married to my ex husband, um, and I was having my first child with him, and I already had two older children from my previous relationship as a teenager, his family told me, just because you're having a child with my son and we're going to be grandparents to that child doesn't mean we're going to accept your older children as our grandchildren. And I just remember thinking that, and I was just like, okay. I mean, they have their own grandparents, like I was like more younger and immature, and I was just like, okay, they don't need you.
Wow.
But that was my remembrance when it comes to blended families memories.
Yeah, mine's was I didn't even know I was in a blended family. I didn't find out until I was getting married that I was in a blended family. I know, it's kind of
That is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, I didn't I probably knew, but then I don't know. But yeah, that was like 27 years ago. And then I figured out, man, no wonder nobody was listening to me. Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about blended families. Yeah. So I'm Andrea.
I'm Stephanie, and we are Familyology. And Familyology provides education, consulting for individuals and families from conception through every stage of family life. And we believe healthy relationship starts before birth.
Yeah, so we're doing our live. So welcome for everybody that's on. We're in Familyology, and I'm so excited. And this live, we call it United Heart Talks. Okay, and so like she said, we're going to be talking about blended families. I feel like this is the hot topic. I feel like most families are blended in some kind of way, right? And so before we get into that topic, I want to throw out a myth, right? One of the biggest myths when it comes down to blended families is that love will make it easier. Yeah, that word, the L word. That's what I'm gonna call it, the L word. That's a curse word when it comes down to blended families because sometimes we lean into that. We lean into the love word, like that's going to make things better. But I want to go more in the topic of change, like how, because with blended families come change. And like I said, I was a person, I didn't even know I was in a blended family. I was the youngest one that came in. So they probably had that thing established. And I was just like, hey, I'm here. But one of the things I realized that our voices matter. I like to say that word again, but our voices are important when it comes to change and when it comes to establishing this new unit, or even when it's older, how we're gonna I guess evolve in this family, this new family unit, right? So Stephanie, what do you want to talk? What is your take, or what do you want to say on
I don't know. I always tell people, like, my family is so blended. It's so crazy and chaotic in a sense when it comes to blended. I feel that I just, I guess I don't carry that much value. I mean, I do. I mean, obviously, I carry my children who are, I could say, blood, right? But at the same time, I don't think family requires you to be bloodline connection. I've learned that my mom was so accepting to accept anyone within our families. Like, even now, like, um, my stepdad has my youngest brother. My sister, who's after me, lives with my stepdad. And they invited some folks into their home, and now they're like, this is deal. And I'm like, deal? Like, okay, like, sure. But that's always been like that. Or my mom had multiple partners, right? So my sister's dad is it's another dad, and then our youngest brother's another dad.
that?
And there was one point that who I considered not the best stepdad. That was my sister's dad, but someone who actually I could thank them in a weird way that because of his lifestyle, it taught me how to problem solve and figure things out, but not in a pleasant way. But him, my sister's dad, once once upon a time lived with my current stepdad at one point, you
Uh,
know? So it's like that weird that I will go visit my current stepdad, and then there's my other stepdad, my past previous former
yeah,
stepdad,
wow.
and things like that, you know. So like to me, accepting people and just having heart for people was just something simple. When I got married, and obviously I already had previous children because that was my high school thing, and I got married, my ex-husband's family are not like that. They always had this like blood, you know, blood is blood, and we don't accept other people, and they were just not welcoming, and I just always felt like they were so cold and just not beautiful, soft-hearted individuals, and that was really hard to like comprehend because I just never understood, you know. But yes.
Yeah, I heard of that. I heard blood is thicker than water. I think that's the statement. And for me, the reason why I really didn't notice that I was in a blended family, part of it, I would like to say is my dad. You know, he was the one that was the stepfather, but we didn't speak step. You know, I knew my sisters were my sisters, and I really didn't realize it until some mail came, and I was older, and I just saw a different last name on my sister's name, and I'm like, what in the world? And then it came out. I'm like hitting like 20 something now. I'm finding this out, you know? And I
Yeah.
was like, what? Huh? I mean, but it was, back in the time for me, in my time age, that was taboo. It
Mhm.
was like it needed to be all blood. Like everybody had to have the same mom and the same dad or whatever the case. So I think it was not necessarily something that you displayed. It was not something like, so it was pretty much hidden. But one of the things that I'm admiring on your story, what you're saying is they had to communicate that in some kind of way. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. It's about the kids. You know what I mean? And that's going back to that voice. Going back to how do you communicate when you deciding to do that? And sometimes you just kind of go, here it is. I fell in love. You know, we
Mhm.
didn't think this through. We just love each other, right? So it's like, how are we gonna do this? The Brady Bunch, right? Going back into the Brady Bunch moment, like here's a story, you know what I mean? And it's like, how do you navigate that? There might be somebody on here right now that are about to get married, and they're like, how are we going to navigate that? But we love each other. Like, how are we going to put these two families together and make sure everybody feels somewhat comfortable, or at least feel like they're still seen, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, and it just really depends because I guess we never really talked about it. I feel as we're growing up and the line that we do now, we're all about, doing our core values and doing who we are, and believe in ourselves and trust what we need, and we communicate. But then I feel it is what it is, like it was just so blended that it was just normal, like. And the reason why my former stepdad and my current stepdad started living together at one point is because my mom already passed away a long time ago,
Yeah, that's true.
and I didn't go with my dad. He was in Albuquerque, but I didn't want to go with my dad, and
Hmm.
there was some reasons why I didn't want to go. And then my stepdad says, "Oh, well, you could stay here." So then I just end up staying there, and then my sister lives there too, and it was just a normal thing. Like it was nothing weird. And I remember one time his family says, "Well, isn't that weird? You're gonna be like still living in the same household, and Norma's not there no more, and that's her older daughter." And then I'm just like, "Well, because you're kind of like my dad too. What do they mean?" But they were thinking about other relational things that in my brain it didn't comprehend, because I'm just like, I'm just a daughter, you're like a father. what's the big deal, you know?
Yeah,
But they were thinking about other adult things.
I get what you're saying.
And I'm 20, you know, and I'm just like, I don't understand what they're saying. That's just weird. Why would they think that? You know, like I was just like weird, weird, weird. And it's crazy because my current stepdad, his parents always stayed together, so they're not a blended family. You know, so I think that's why they came with that mentality. I come from a blended family from a long time ago, so it was just the norm. And I feel like nobody really taught us how to do this like conscious questioning, like how when you're dating and you're gonna combine families, to ask reflecting questions like what are the expectations, what are your needs, how do you feel secure, what do we have to do when there's conflict, how do you handle different personalities. Like there's a lot of things that now, as I was married to my ex-husband, we never talked about those things, and now I could see like parenting skills, like there's a lot of things what influence us to separate, and it was because of the blended family issue too.
Yeah, like now in my status too, I've been thinking about that, being that I'm recently single. I'm kind of like, if I do go into that, if I do happen to fall in love again, and he and my new person has children, and then how is he going to, like, I'm more about discipline. You know, how is that going to play? How is my ex-husband going to feel about that? Being like the kids being disciplined from somebody else, and it's a lot of voices talking or influence. And then same way me, like if he remarries, like am I ready for that? You know, somebody else being that influence in my children's life. You know, so yeah, it's something that needs to be talked about. That is not. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really, and that was why I thought about this topic. You know, because it's in a lot of stories. It's in a lot of places, but I don't really hear it being addressed. And and so, you know, what can you expect when it comes down to, because my dad was the glue. And when he passed away, I really saw it. Like I saw the split. That's once my dad passed away, then it was like, oh yeah, I'm a blended family. You know?
And that's crazy because your dad was the one entering, you know, like he was the stepdad in a sense. And then for a stepdad to be the glue, normally it's the mother who's the mother of everyone to be the glue. And that's insane.
Yeah, my dad was the one that made sure, hey, go talk to your sister. Hey, you know, and when he was removed, that's when I was like, hello, hey, brother, sister, where are you? Yeah, that's when I kind of started seeing the blended family dynamic coming in, because it was just, I was just like, wow, it's really true. Like, and even the nieces and the nephews, everybody started moving that way. Because, you know, when somebody passes away, you don't you, you gotta try to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the same way when you add a person to the mix. When you add a significant other to the mix, now it's everybody's trying to figure out where they fit. And you know, I'm always big about talking about nature, like the chicken. We talk about the chicken coop, and when you add a new chicken to the coop, who's going to eat? There's a number, like who's going to be this, what family is the strong family, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can lose your name, if that makes sense. You lose your identity, and that's something that I had to navigate. And also, I feel like being a relational consultant at Familyology, I realized that there is tools to help to get that conversation out. No
Yeah.
matter if you're 6 years old, like having those tools to make it easier to establish that, whether it's the stepfather or the stepmother, and having those tools to initiate how we're going to do this, like how we're going to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is why I'm excited that we are launching our Becoming group,
Yeah.
because sometimes we don't have those resources, and sometimes going with friends or family are nice because they help us, but at the same time they're just other people who are living without having like the tools or the resource or the connections, and having more a neutral understanding. Like, sometimes they're not asking you certain questions because we all come with different stories, and depending on what you're trying to accomplish is hard. And sometimes going with friends and families are not the best ideal, because now you're trying to do a unity. You're not trying to do a community decision. You're trying to do a unity, and having that group you know, with other individuals that is facilitated in a way that is going to help you to think for your own individual self and for your own family, but at the same time having those tools and questions that make you think, and you guys could be with aligned individuals, is very helpful. And I think it's exciting when you have that space to hold space for those kind of questions,
Mm-hmm.
because all families are different. But we could come in synchrony in an end goal that is uniting hearts, connecting, knowing yourself, and being able to articulate things, because everyone's going to have different voices.
Yeah, buddy, it sure is. So, like for instance, some of the questions would be like, what do you expect when it comes down to a blended family, and what do you think that looks like? Because even though you might personally be been in a blended family, but now you're establishing a whole nother blended family, it might not be the same. And then also, are we building a new family, or are we just creating an old one? Like
Mm,
like is this a new family, or you're just joining our family?
right. And that's really hard, because there's times where I remember my ex husband saying, "Well, I don't have a voice here," or "It doesn't feel like my own home either," So that was very interesting. And being able to, like, how you're going to do disciplinary, like, how are you going to handle things? What am I going to be okay? Because, like, sometimes even though we're trying to create a new family, you're like, but these are my children. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, don't talk to him like that. Like, I just know it was like, whoa, whoa, mama bear here. Like, I'm going to start fighting,
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you're trying to understand your partner, and you're like, I hear you, but like, you're also an adult, like, you have to like know how to navigate them, their children. And then like you have to understand the children perspective. And I feel like my ex-husband had this perspective of like, no, I'm the authority, I'm the boss, we're the boss, and I'm just like, I don't know if I like that vibe. I don't run with that. And it just, and then I put myself in my kid's situation, because then I was a rebel, because why? I had a toxic stepdad where I was like, what, you want to throw, you want to fight, like, I'm gonna like fight you back, so then this is why I understood my children. Because I was them at one point, so it was just like, what is your children's perspective, like, what losses of each children experience to become a blended family? Do children feel that they have permission to love their biological father and their stepdad at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of little questions. Like, we created like 20, like, we have 23 questions here with like 6 different categories, and it's going to be taking forever to go through all of them. But
Right.
if you want all these questions, you can always email us at info@familyology.com, and we are happy to send you all these questions, because it's a really good brainstormer, and then even go further, like, how does each individual handle stress? How
Yes.
does your new partner handle stress? How do you handle stress? What feels safe? What doesn't feel safe? Same with the children, So then you can start understanding each other's nervous system. What rhythm are we doing? And what are some protocols that we could do that we could always come again to a mutual agreement that is, we're all feeling safe?
Mm-hmm.
And understand that there is a level of hierarchy, right? Because adults are adults and children are children, but in the same time that we do it in a beautiful way that we're all being heard, but we still are giving ourselves our place,
Yes.
but be able to influence for a positive outcome. And this is where I'm even more excited, because not only are we launching our becoming group, but we're also currently working on our series for family meeting blueprints
Yeah.
series, and that's really exciting because, like, how do we handle conflict?
Yeah, and I also was thinking that when you were talking about that, I was thinking about the family meeting because that's the way to start, like creating those habits or routines uh, for the family to speak on things. Because I feel like for me, like I said, I didn't find out until I was 23, and that created it created insecurities in me because I was like, what else do I do not know? You know what I mean? And I can't even imagine how it created with my sister, and where you're trying to play this part, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so having that freedom to still be able to love your biological father and love your stepfather, it's okay, and
Or stepmother or
or
step
stepmother and stuff. Yeah,
parents,
yeah, the parents, yes. And these are I'm big on, like, now in the situation I'm in, I'm in a position where I can choose my family, right? And it's okay. It's okay. But I feel like sometimes we have this appearance of things, I guess, and it affected me. It affected me to be perfect, or I was unstable. Like, oh, is there something else I don't know? Like, I can't stand secrets, or stuff like that because of all the things that I found later on when I got older, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, so there is benefits in really, um as the parents first, carving out on how to do it, or if you're already in a blended family, coming up with some tools to bond to bond the siblings, um, and then in establishing that unit as a whole, because I feel like it can be done. It
Mhm.
can be done, and it can be very successful, and you can't become a family that now the L word can come in, love each other, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, was there anything else, Stephanie, that
No,
was?
like like just looking at my marriage, like obviously my ex-husband and I were not bad people, right? Like we just come with different stories and belief system, and we were really young, and all we do is trying our best for the sake of our unity and love. And you know I thought we were going to grow together old and everything. So like, and I know we tried some books here and there, but not fully. And I was learning, and you kind of get lost. You lose yourself, especially the more you have children. And
Mhm.
you lose yourself. You lose your old self and so forth, and the hormones, and then you got to work, and then life gets busy, and we kind of tried a little bit counseling, but what makes a difference here, I feel like we are doing a little shortcut because we're giving it a formula,
Mhm.
and we're like giving live examples, and we're teaching like, okay, this is by experience. And not only that, we're going to also make it customized because we're going to hear what's going on. And again, in the end, when you really bring it down to narrow, it's about the nervous system and how we're handling stress and how do we react when we're not feeling safe anymore, or it's feeling too much. And so, two things before we end this, like, one, we're starting our becoming group. If you go to our website, you're going to see our link there in our education button. You click on it, there you go. But anyone who's listened to our YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, we're going to put the link in our bio or in the bottom of the description. And that one, it does give a discount. So that's really amazing. If you go to our website, there's no discount, guys. Okay. And second, if you really want the 23 questions so it can start making you think, just email us at info@familyology.com, and we'll be happy, me and Andrea, to send you those questions so you can start kind of brainstorming and start like going, oh my god, this is really interesting, or oh, that's a really good question and we never thought of that. But besides that, anything else?
No, anything else? Hey, join this discount. This is our 2-year anniversary, Familyology. So yeah, join that discount. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. You will not regret it. So thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.